I'm Rod Mead-Sperry, the digital editor of the Shambhala Sun, and I'm here with Andy Karr, who along with Michael Wood is the co-author of the book, The Practice of Contemplative Photography, which has just been released. Congratulations on the release, Andy.
Thanks very much.
And thanks for speaking to me.
My pleasure.
I want to talk about the idea of contemplative photography. We have an excerpt from the book in the current issue of the Shambhala Sun. The book is right here. It's all about seeing the world with new eyes. What does that mean?
Well, photography really comes in a couple of different fundamental versions. One is based on subject matter and technique. And there are a lot of different varieties of that, but what the photographer is after is the right subject matter or the right treatment, right technical things or craft. The other is based on seeing. And there's a long tradition of great photographers whose work is based on perception and their experience. People like André Carthage and Henri Cartier-Bresson, people like that who really perception comes first.
And how does contemplative photography work into honing that perception?
Well, the contemplative space is the space of perception, the space of freedom from thought, freedom from conceptual mind. And the technique of contemplative photography is to work with the natural gaps we have in our ongoing thinking process of telling ourselves what we're experiencing. So, taking those gaps, noticing them, heightening them a little, and using those perceptions as the basis of what you're going to shoot.
Now, you had a show right here in Halifax recently to celebrate the launch of the book, which featured examples of contemplative photography by you, by your co-author Michael Wood, and by some other people as well?
Yeah.
Including?
Julie DeVos, who's a teacher of contemplative photography along with Michael, and Anne Lancelot, who's a local photographer who studied with Michael, and Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, who is the basic source of all of what ended up becoming the contemplative photography approach.
Okay. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to actually sit and talk and look at a couple of examples from the book.
Sure.
Starting perhaps with the Chogyam Trungpa photograph that was in your show.
Okay.
This photo here on the right, how is this exemplary of contemplative photography?
Well, I would say that the subject matter is not something that anyone would go looking for. The two pieces of the Texaco sign, the way they're included in this frame, doesn't really make sense to our thinking mind, but when you see it, it does convey something very powerful about both the space and the unconventionality of it, the freedom from any sort of thought process that might have gone into it.
So it's less about conveying a particular message that we might word, and more just presenting something for the attractiveness of that something, or...
Well, the attractiveness and kind of the freshness of it, the fact that it's not part of our normal, habitual way of seeing the world.
Okay, let's move on to another example.
So these are a couple of shots by Michael, my co-author, which also emphasize space. So one is the picture of a parking lot, and the other is some sort of dirt corral or something like that, and neither of them is the kind of subject matter or even the kind of technique that anyone would go about searching for as an idea of what would make a good photograph. On the other hand, both of them have a lot of presence and freshness because they aren't the kinds of things that easily fit into our visual vocabulary.
So contemplative photography really avoids cliché.
It certainly avoids cliché.
Okay. Let's move on to one more example.
Okay. I mentioned Henri Cartier-Bresson, who is one of my heroes. fabulous photographer, well known, and we happened to choose 2 photos of his to include in the book that I think are great examples of things that just defy conceptual mind but really work as photographs. So the picture on the right, which is of Martine Frank's legs, his wife's legs, on the couch, she's reading a book. You just don't think of shooting things like that, but if you have that perception and it strikes you, you might do it. And Henri Cartier-Bresson obviously did, and it's fantastic. The other shot is a very well-known shot of the Tuileries Gardens in Paris, and you probably can't see what makes this shot so spectacular, but the trees are very nice and ornamental. There's a person here and a tiny person in the background which you wouldn't really notice unless you were kind of free from concept, and they're kind of lined up perfectly. So.
And I understand you're taking the book on a tour to celebrate its release?
I certainly am. My wife and I are getting in the car, and we're going to go down the East Coast and across the country to Colorado and up to the Pacific Northwest and back again.
Wow, that's great. People will certainly enjoy looking inside the book and meeting you in person. Hope you enjoyed looking inside the book here on Shambhala Sunspace. We'll post a link to your tour information. Have a great tour, and congratulations on the book.
Thanks very much, Rod. Great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you. Thank you.